السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Inshallah, we'll go through juz number 16. And since we're in the second half of Ramadan, as Ibn Rajab, rahimahullah, said, which is a reminder for myself and everyone, that the month of Ramadan is decreasing, so you increase in your good deeds. ألا وإن شهركم قد أخذ في النقص فزيدوا أنتم في العمل. Indeed, your month is now decreasing, is less than it's the second half. So what's required in the second half is more actions than was done in the first half. And يعني subhanallah, this is another statement by Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah. He mentioned that between the slave of Allah and happiness is قوة عزيمة, a strong determination, صبر ساعة, an hour of patience, شجاعة نفس, to be courageous, ثبات قلب, to have a heart that is firm upon the truth, والفضل بيد الله يؤتيه من يشاء والله ذو الفضل العظيم. And bounty is by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He gives it to whoever He wills subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's to have the strong determination to be upon the truth and to seek help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so that we are steadfast upon the deen of Allah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us steadfastness. The 16th juz, which is part of Surah Al-Kahf and Surah Maryam and Taha also. In the second part of Surah Al-Kahf, which is the continuation of the story of Musa alayhi salam and Al-Khadr. And of course, the benefits are, endless benefits that we can learn from these stories. And the qadr of Allah, and to always think good about matters, which is basically a command from Allah, to always think good about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only decrees by His qadr what is beautiful, to extract from us different types of acts of worship. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to worship Him with being grateful, with having patience, with still being obedient to Allah at times of ease, at times of adversities, at times of difficulties. So all of these types of trials that people go through in this life, it's all with exact measures by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And for people to fulfill the purpose of their life, which is the obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's these types of stories and examples gives us these meanings. And then the story of Dhul Qarnayn, and which is the fitna of power. And the mention of Ya'juj and Ma'juj, which is one of the major signs of the hour. All of these things are also things to be considered. The surah has one of the verses that some of the early generations of Islam, they said it's the most fearful verse, أخوف آية في القرآن, that brings lots of fear, which is قل هل ننبئكم بالأخسرين أعمال. Should we inform you of the worst actions among people? Who are the worst individual? الذي ضل سعيهم في الحياة الدنيا وهم يحسبون أنهم يحسنون صنعا. Those who their actions in this world have been deviated, and they think or they count that they are doing good. When people think that they're doing good, but in reality they are deviated from the true path. These are those who they disbelieved in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the last day, so their deeds are rendered in vain. The last verse in Surah Al-Kahf has a clear command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to establish the two conditions for the deeds to be accepted by Allah. The last verse, قُلْ إِنَّمَا أَنَا بَشَرٌ مِثْلُكُمْ يُوحَى إِلَيَّ. Indeed, I'm a human being like you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying to the Prophet ﷺ to say that he is a human being, yuha ilay. But then, except that he receives the wahy from Allah, that your ilah, the one to be worshipped, is only one. فَمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو لِقَاءَ رَبِّهِ. Whoever hope to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the day of judgment, those who believe in the last day, فَلْيَعْمَلْ عَمَلًا صَالِحًا. Let them do righteous good deeds, وَلَا يُشْرِكْ بِعِبَادَةِ رَبِّهِ أَحَدًا, and not to associate partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the two conditions for the deeds to be accepted. For the deeds to be sincerely for the sake of Allah, and to follow the way of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. So, akhlasu wa aswabu, the most sincere and the most correct of actions. So this is a clear order from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for people to observe that. After that, Surah Maryam, which is also a Makki surah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as we know, Surah Maryam talks about Maryam alayhi salam and Isa alayhi salam and Zakaria and Yahya, prophets of Allah, for people to learn from their ways and how they were righteous and obedient to Allah and firm upon the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it teaches us what our priorities and the concerns that we should carry, and how when Zakaria alayhi salam, he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for a child, he did not ask to have a child for the sake of having a child, but rather to have a child to take care of the people of Bani Israel and their religious needs, and to convey the message to them and to continue the prophethood. So it's all for the sake of Allah, for the matters of the religion and the different characteristics that they have. After what's mentioned about the story of Zakaria and Yahya, and then Maryam alayhi salam and her son, the miraculous birth of Isa alayhi salam, and how the people differed afterwards with regards to Isa alayhi salam, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is warning and saying to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam in verse number 39, وَأَنذِرْهُمْ, and warn them on the day of al-hasra, on the day of regret. إِذْ قُضِيَ الْأَمْرُ, when the matter is over, وَهُمْ فِي غَفْلَةِ وَهُمْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ, when they were heedless and they were disbelievers. So this was to the Christians, to the people of the book, and to the people in general. وَأَنذِرْهُمْ, warn them on the day of al-hasra. And one of the names of the day of al-qiyamah is the day of al-hasra. Al-hasra is regret, and it comes from hasara an al-shay. That means it's revealed something. That has to reveal something. So it's revealing the truth, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned Ibrahim alayhi salam, and he's calling his father to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. And what he's saying to his father is also to each and every one of us. Don't worship anyone but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When it comes to the knowledge, the son is saying to his father, follow me, I have the proper knowledge. And not to worship shaitan, and that he fears that a punishment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will touch him, and so on. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that how he bestowed his favor upon Ibrahim alayhi salam with Ishaq and Yaqub, and then some of the prophets of Allah, Ismail, and how he was truthful in his promise, and he's a prophet of Allah, and he would command his family to establish the salah and to give the zakah. And Idris is mentioned, and then all of the prophets, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praised them, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided them and chose them. Then the warning, those who come after the messengers of Allah, they neglect their salah and they follow the shahawat. فَخَلَفَ مِنْ بَعْدِهِمْ خَلْفٌ أَضَاعُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَاتَّبَعُوا الشَّهَوَاتِ فَسَوْفَ يَلْقَوْنَ غَيًّا. And this is in verse number 59, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after he mentioned the happy ones, the chosen ones, the prophets of Allah, then he mentioned the generations that comes after them. أَضَاعُوا الصَّلَاةَ, that means they neglected their salah. They did not establish the salah. So if they don't establish the salah, they don't establish anything else afterwards. And some said that means they neglected the salah completely. And some of the early generations of Islam, they said that they delayed it from its times, delaying the salah from its prescribed times. So, أضاعوا الصلاة واتبعوا الشهوات, and followed their desires. So they followed their desires, and they, with sinful desires and things like this. So they did not fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So as a result of that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punished them. Except those who repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and believe and do righteous good deeds. Then, the verses, again, we're focusing on the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and how the ayat in the end of Surah Maryam, beautiful verses that talks about human beings and nations before, and to be obedient to Allah, and to remember that, to humble oneself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then after that, Surah Taha, and the Quran is revealed and brought down to the Prophet ﷺ for the happiness of this life and hereafter, not to be wretched or to be ruined, but the opposite. Then the story of Musa ﷺ is mentioned in so much details, and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected Musa ﷺ and raised him in such a way, preparing him for this heavy responsibility of prophethood and to deal with the people of Bani Israel. And the story of a Samiri, how it's mentioned also. So there's so much details in there and so much great benefits. And then towards the end of the surah talks about Adam alayhi salam, how the shaitan whispered to him. And as a result of that, he was brought down to the earth. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warned those who are blind from the revelation from Allah, they will be punished in the day of judgment. And towards the end of the surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying to the Prophet ﷺ, فَاصْبِرْ عَلَى مَا يَقُولُ, be patient with regards to what they say. وَسَبِّحْ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّكَ, and command to make tasbih and tahmeed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before the sun rising and before sunset and during the night, which is the 5 daily salah, and the early in the morning and the morning and the evening. And also do not extend your eyes to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the others, the disbelievers, of the adornment of this life, for them to be tested. And again, it's for everybody, the youth and the old and everything. When you see someone that is a disbeliever spreading corruption in the face of earth and is given so much of this worldly gain, do not extend your eyes, do not make that enter your heart. This is all a trial for them. And the provisions from your Lord is best, is what is best. And also command your family to establish the salah and be patient with that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَا نَسْأَلُكَ رِزْقًا نَحْنَ نَرْزُقُكَ, we don't ask you for provisions, we will provide for you. The provisions is by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that how all of that is related together. For you to establish the salah, you need to not to extend your eyes to the beauty of this world that would distract you away from the commands of Allah. And always advise and command your family to establish the salah, and do not let the rizq and the provisions divert you away from that. And al-aqibah, or the outcome and the end, is for the people of Taqwa. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us all to be on the straight path. And this is brief, and again, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for everyone. And we're just going through some of the things or some of the commands of Allah. طيب, barakallahu fikum. May Allah reward you and keep us all steadfast in blessed days of the month of Ramadan, and do the best we can, inshallah. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala Muhammad wa sallam. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.